everybody. Welcome to Scratch Claw Push. It is a holiday week, and also in addition, there's some other stuff going on. So we decided to forego our usual interview and just kind of talk about a couple of things that are going on in my life and how they relate to creatives as a whole and how we do our work in spite of everything, which is kind of the theme of the show. So I'll just start by putting it out there that my acting teacher always said that dilettantes allow things to get in their way, and that people who are professionals get things done. But in all of our lives, shit comes up that you can't control and that you have to face. Last Friday night, my apartment building, and forgive me, I might start crying sometime during this because it's just been a week. But just about exactly a week ago, Friday night, about 10:30 p.m., I was talking to my roommate and the fire alarm started going off. And I had already heard sirens outside, but that's not unusual in my neighborhood. And I was like, I heard sirens. I'm going to go check this out. And our roof is on fire. And my apartment complex had two buildings separated by a large concrete parking ramp. Building 1 is completely destroyed. Building 2, my building, I'm way at the back of it, is still intact. And as far as I can tell, not affected. I escaped with my cat, my backpack, my computer, and my laptop and my phone. I happened to have my passport because I had traveled a few months ago, but I didn't have my purse or anything else. And basically nothing else. So luckily I have a place to stay. I'm staying with my boyfriend. And some family members have already been very generous because I don't know when, the insurance is going to be able to get us anything to deal with what we're going through. And thank God we have renter's insurance. But right now, there are news reports of people ransacking our building. It's one of those things that you never want to have to face. Please make sure you have a go bag ready, because I wish I had had a go bag ready. And, make sure you have your insurance. Even if your building tells you that, oh, well, we're just going to include a fee and, that'll be your liability insurance. Yeah, you still need to cover your own crap. So a lot of people in our building, they had just told us we didn't need to provide proof of insurance anymore, like a month ago. So a lot of people in our building didn't have insurance because of that. So despite all of this, I set up my voiceover equipment in my boyfriend's closet, and I've been doing auditions from there, and I'm gonna, in like less than an hour, go do a job from there, and I'm making it work. And part of me wanted to say no to the job because it wasn't a big job. It's not going to make me a lot of money or anything. But part of me always hears my acting teacher's voice in my head saying professionals get it done. And so I'm like, I think there's a breaking point, and this is what I hear from a lot of other creatives, is that there is a point at which emotionally you can't do it anymore. I was okay until yesterday. And then my boyfriend and I went on a walk, and I got an email from the building saying that we would need to evacuate all of our stuff, and that every single floor would get a different day to do it. And we would only get 4 hours to evacuate everything. My day that they gave me was Thanksgiving Day. So the last 24 hours now has been just me reliving the trauma, I guess. Like my boyfriend said, it's like we've been re-traumatized. I didn't sleep well last night. My stomach's very upset. I'm just trying to get through it, and so it's just a lot. It's a lot to, be here, introduce 2 cats, all of a sudden be living with my boyfriend who I haven't lived with, and to, in a small apartment with no real separate spaces to go to. Um, and just dealing with a lot of stuff, you know? Um, but yeah, I, uh, I always want to set a good example because I truly believe in like everything that we've talked about here for Scratch Claw Push is that it's not, I don't believe in like hustle culture exactly, as people are very down on that these days. And I get that. Like, we shouldn't push ourselves to um, the point of breaking, especially for not for things that aren't important to us. I think that's the point, right? It's like we determine what success means for us. We determine where that line is, and we determine what we will do to get there. But if it really is important to us, then we shouldn't let stupid little things get in our way. Like for me today, it was getting Source Connect set up and making sure my ports were mapped properly, which most people will be like, what does that mean? But it's something stupid and technical that I have to do, and Xfinity's app wasn't working and blah, 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 just, and then making sure like, oh, I gotta go turn off all the fans and maybe turn off the fridge too, so I can record in a quiet space and just things like that. So I'm just trying not to let those things get in my way. In the past 2 months, a lot has happened, and I haven't really talked about it on the show at all, but past 2 months, it's like I had COVID, my roommate had COVID, my boyfriend lost his job, his cat for here, not this one, the other one, had got really sick, had to be put to sleep, and then my boyfriend while his cat was sick, got in a car accident. He was hit by 5 people in a car that was stolen, and he was lucky to walk away completely unharmed, but his car is totaled. And so he's in the process of trying to get the insurance company to pay him out the right amount, and they did not pay him out the right amount, and he can't get an answer, and all of these things have piled on. There's even more than that, but like that's the stuff I'm comfortable talking about, and it's just too much. It's too much. But I also just know like things keep going. And this is the point when I think it was maybe you said to me, like, no, I can't remember who said to me, like, oh, it might have been my coach. Like, if you need to go and just go on a bender for a while, do it. Like, let yourself do what you got to do. I am eating Doritos. So that tells you about where I am emotionally. Comfort food. But yeah, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, I said, well, shit, if you can't eat Doritos at a time like this, then what's the point of anything?
I got the Ben and Jerry's non-dairy ice cream, which is better than their ice cream. No,
at this point, I'd go all in. I mean, I'm getting the full, all the fat, all the sugar, Cherry Garcia, and I'm just going to town and not giving a damn.
Well, no, I say, I mean, like, I love ice cream, but their non-dairy 7-layer bar is better than any of their ice creams. It's so good, and it has a lot more fat than the regular ice cream.
Well, they got to compensate in some way,
It's made of coconut. Coconut has a lot of fat. It's fine. So.
Oh, well, okay. Hopefully it's like a healthy fat. I don't know, or at least that's what, I would tell myself.
Yeah. So, I mean, we shared a pint the other night. I can't eat a whole pint, especially right now. I'm like, my stomach is so upset. Right. I like had half of a sandwich for lunch, and I didn't even finish the last 2 Doritos sitting here. Haven't finished my coffee yet because I'm just
I seem to always have the opposite problem. When I get stressed out, I just start eating everything in sight. I mean, that's why I came out of COVID, 20 pounds, or came out of the pandemic 20 pounds heavier than I went into it.
Well, I agree with that, and I did too. I gained 20 pounds. I gained the COVID-19 because it was like basically 19 pounds.
Oh,
but I was I was like, why? It's a different type of stress though. Like it's more of
Yeah,
a
it's yeah. I think it's definitely that was one was just down kind of like that prolonged anxiety and just all the stuff that just comes with being having to be stuck in your house all the
right.
time and not
It
being
was
able
a
to.
low grade. It was a low grade thing
It was
for
a
the most part.
slow. It was like a long, slow burn. Well, this is like shit, a fucking fire,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah,
But I
this
mean,
is
yeah,
acute. It's just a different type of trauma.
right.
It's an acute
That's
trauma.
I've had that a few times where it's just like something happens and then just like I would. It's one of the, it's like I wish I had that kind of willpower like on a normal day, but I've had those times where I would just lose like 10 to 15 pounds of just not eating
Yeah.
or like
I've never been there. I've always gained weight from stress rather than losing. But right now I'm just like, I'm not that hungry. I didn't even have dessert last night. And usually when I'm here, we always have dessert. So
yeah.
I was just so full from the soup we had. I was like full and then stressed out. I was like, yeah, I can't. I gotta finish these auditions and I gotta go to bed and try to sleep. And I actually woke up and came to my computer like probably 20 minutes after we went to bed. I couldn't fall asleep. I came to my computer to make notes about the things I was thinking about that I needed to do today. Like you were on that list. I was like, I have to call Brandon. I have to talk to him about the thing. I have to do this. I have to cancel Monday. I have to, just so much stuff. Um,
Well,
yeah.
that's a better mindset than just sitting around like drinking yourself into a stupor, which I feel like a lot of people I know came out of the pandemic and like they've got like alcohol problems. I know people who've had to get sober and
Hmm.
just give it up because when you were just sitting around and there wasn't a whole lot to do. I was literally being one of those people. I was at the liquor store one day and I overheard like two guys talking. That's what one was like, I'm telling you, man, this dude's about to like buy a new house. Like the guy that was running the place, they were talking about him.
Mm.
And then just like say, like, he's making so much money right now.
Well, the Great Depression, right? I mean, prohibition was happening during the Great Depression, but like
I think it
alcohol
came,
is all people could deal with, right? Like,
yeah, I think it came like, yeah, right. Yeah, it's kind of right about that same time. Actually, yeah. And I just saw a movie recently called My Name is Bill, and we can talk about that shit now because the strike is over. But yeah, I got turned on to this movie called My Name is Bill, or yeah, My Name is Bill W. And it's about the guy that started AA. And I didn't realize it was this old, but it
mm,
actually started like in 1935.
that
I
makes
mean,
sense. I mean, there was like temperance
yeah,
organizations
like
back then.
I didn't think it came on. I thought it was like a newer organization that probably came. I was thinking because like like Betty Ford and all that. Like it probably. I
Hmm.
was thinking it probably came along like in the 70s or something. But no, it's been around since 1935, and it was just and the guy that started it, man. If the movie is accurate, you have to like you literally just have to buy it on DVD. You can't find it anywhere. I found it somewhere on Amazon and just bought it.
Well,
And sorry.
I was going to say, speaking of coping mechanisms, like going back to what I was saying before about people saying during the pandemic, a lot of people were like, I can't create right now. I am in this state. And and I get that. Like there are times when if you are coping with shit, that it can be hard. It's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? It's like right
Yeah.
now my need is to dissociate and to uh just not not think about what's going on, right? And I get that. I've definitely in some ways been there. Like when my grandpa died when I was like 24, all I did was go to work, feed myself, and watch lots of happy movies. And then when I wasn't doing that, I often like would write. I wrote a lot. And I think that was like, it's like you watch the happy movies to escape, but then I also was like writing through a lot of what I was feeling and going through. And I think that's the difference is like people think like, oh, I can't be productive right now because of all of this stuff. I'm not trying to shame anybody for whatever they have to do, but I do personally believe that coping with this type of thing is easier if you use it in your art. If you use art or creativity to get through it, I think that usually helps. Um, Especially writing. It doesn't have to be writing to create something that you're going to put out there. I mean, I've never put anything out there really that came out of the time when my grandpa was sick, you're in hospice, but um, and just also in the specifically in the escaping or dissociating realm, there was a point when my cat Pandora got really sick and I had to give her like 4 pills every morning. I had to give her more pills before I went to rehearsal at night. And then I had to give her more pills before bed. It's like 3 times a day I had to pill this cat, which pilling a cat is great time, super fun. But I had to go drive into the city an hour and a half in the morning, rush hour, go to work. And then I had to drive back to the suburbs, pill the cat. And then I had to drive back into the city, which at that time of day was more like a half an hour instead of an hour and a half, and go to rehearsal. And I was rehearsing an improvised comedy wake, Flanagan's Wake. So an
Oh, okay.
improvised
Like,
comedy Irish wake. And I
interesting.
was playing the widow's or the deceased girlfriend, widow, whatever you want to call. But I had never been in a show like that before. I've never had to, at that point, I'd never had to improvise a song every night. I had to improvise a full song with like 4 verses, a bridge, and it had to rhyme, and it had to end on a dirty joke and make sense, of course. So I had to do that every night. And meanwhile, I'm like freaking out. I mean, I had to take care of my cat. So we only had 2.5 weeks of rehearsal, maybe 2. Like it was very short rehearsal process. And I just knew that if I went into rehearsal and told everybody, yeah, my cat's dying and I don't know what's going to happen because she's really, really sick and she's my baby, I knew I wouldn't be able to get through rehearsal like that. So I just had to compartmentalize that shit. And I would go to work all day, go back. On the drives to and from, I was giving myself audience suggestions and improvising songs and recording them on my phone. Because an hour and a half in the car, if you are just thinking about the shit in your life that's going wrong, could be torment. Or you give your monkey brain a task to do, then you're good. Like, honestly, giving my fucking monkey brain the task of improvise a 4-verse song with a bridge and make it rhyme and have a dirty joke, like, my brain was like, okay, I'll do it. And that's what I did for 2 weeks straight. And I didn't tell anyone my cat was sick. And then my cat died during that process. Like she just died one night. And like I didn't tell anybody because I knew I would be a mess at rehearsal. And I was like, this is my space where I get to go and pretend shit is okay. And I get to go and laugh and do things and be a normal person whose cat isn't dying. I'm not giving that up. I think some people feel like they need to bring that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got me thinking. Like, I know a lot of people that seem just like incredibly productive, and then of course you kind of get to know them, and you realize a lot of them are kind of struggling with stuff, and work is just kind of being busy like all the time is how they cope. And I mean, we again stuff you saw during the pandemic. Like one of the most productive people I know just fell apart because like all that stuff dried up. And then when you're just sitting there with yourself, and that's one of the things, like I've always had this thing about people that are just like that bit, like just so intensely busy. They're just always like, was like, oh, you need to be more like them. You're like, no, I know. Cause like I've having been around those people or in some way or another my whole life, you was like, the minute that guy stops moving, he's going to collapse. And sure enough, I've seen it more than a few times, like with those people that are just that super type A, just go, 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 go. If the minute you force them to sit down and just not do anything, they go to pieces really quick, man. I mean, on one hand, like again, not because the hustle culture is definitely a thing these days. Like on one hand, it's like, yeah, you want to celebrate productivity, but at the same time, you've got to know when to step off the train because if you don't,
Yeah.
like, you can just kind of, I've seen, and this one thing is like, too, I guess my years working on the night shift at Turner Broadcasting and like at
Hmm.
Gym Shopping Network, when you work nights, you kind of have to you have to almost develop like that sense, like almost like the warning bells. If you ever seen like a Top Gun, when the guy goes in G lock and he's passed out and the plane's going down and the
Yeah.
plane's going, pull up. You almost have to develop something like that. It's like, okay, you're a little fucked up right now. You're severely sleep deprived. Go get some fucking coffee, walk around, because your brain ain't working right.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you've got to develop like that sense. Otherwise, I've seen people who haven't, and they will just like, when their brain starts to crap out, it craps out. Like suddenly you're like, what are you even doing right now?
Right.
Because I've seen those, and then it's a lot of those, like, again, that super type A, they just like, they have to always be doing something. But a lot of those people, they don't have that warning sign. So when they start going
Hmm.
off the rails, they go all the way off.
I've been there. I've definitely been there. I'm pretty type A, but I also, like I said, like I think what you're saying is you got to be able to read your internal gauges, right? Like
Yeah.
know your signs and symptoms and whatever. Like, and also I just think allowing yourself, like, if you don't try to hold it all in, if you don't try to keep that lid on, like I've been crying on and off for the past week, and I just am letting myself do it because I need
Yeah.
to let it out. Like it's too much. Like everything is too much. So
Well, I also, it's again, it's along those similar lines. I feel like that's why I see a lot of people out nowadays that are always trying to like push stoicism, or, and I always go like, I bet anytime I see someone that really harping on that line, I go, that person's probably a fucking mess.
I
Because
love Stoic philosophy.
no, well, I mean, no, but it's like, seriously, it was because like the part of how I got, it became trendy. And it was also like one of the guys that
Hmm.
was out there pushing it was Tim Ferriss, who
Yeah.
was suicidal when he was in college. And you're going, well, of course that guy has to suppress his emotions, because the minute he fucking takes his foot off that brake, that car is going to run away from him. And it's not to knock Tim Ferriss. He seems like he's gotten a pretty good handle on it. Think he's,
Right.
great guy, great podcast. But I mean, it's also, I see that it's just those little things where you see a lot of times those people that are just constantly holding it in. And I mean, I've
Right.
probably been accused of this myself, but it's like, because, and usually you're just kind of looking like, I'm always, I don't know, maybe it's this thing I have where I'm always trying to read people just from being around the people I had to be around growing up. And you're just kind of going like, yeah, that person's weakness is the minute they're forced to, the minutes is like, if there's any crack at all in that dam, they're gonna burst. And then, but I mean, I think that's why it's healthy to just like, sometimes you gotta vent. I'm
Hmm.
totally fine with like, sometimes like, sometimes you just gotta have a good bitch session, just get all your shit out on the table. Like, well, like sometimes like me and my wife is like, it's like, I'm just gonna vent for a minute. Like, okay, you do that, and just spend like the next 5 to 10 minutes just going off, just get it all out of your system. And it's like, just so you know, and the way you do is that it's like, okay, this is not directed at you, I'm not mad at you, but I've just got to, like, I am
Nope.
like, somebody at the job is pissing me off or whatever, like something going on with your life, someone like maybe a relative or whatever is acting a fool, and you just like, I just got to bitch for a minute and just get it off my chest, and then we're going to move on with our day.
Yeah. And I mean, like I've been allowing myself to just, yeah, vent occasionally. My boyfriend keeps venting about stuff too, and I'm just like, oh, we can commiserate about the things that are happening. And then I am so grateful that people have really stepped up to help. And I mean, at first, when my roommate and I we thought we'd be able to go back. We thought it was just a matter of time. Even if it was a few weeks, we thought,
Yeah.
okay, we get to go back. But then as of yesterday, finding out we don't, and we don't have a place to go back to at all, and we may not even be able to get all of our stuff,
Yeah.
that that was just, I
That's a
mean,
gut punch.
shocking. Yeah. And so I think before, because we weren't the ones who watched our little apartments burn. We watched the building burn, but I was like, our building's in the back. We're fine. It'll be okay as long as our building doesn't start on fire. And by the next day, I was like, okay, our building's okay. Got to go get my car, and my building's okay. It's just the front building. We'll be able to go back. But then to find out we can't, it's like we are just as displaced as those other people. We may be able to get more. I mean, they can't get any of their stuff, but before I kind of, I felt really lucky. And my roommate asked me, like, do you have survivor's guilt? And I'm like, not really. Because I also know, like, I do feel bad for them, but I also know there's nothing I can personally do for them. I didn't financially, I'm in no place to help those people. I could give them some clothes that I was going to give to Goodwill, but I don't even know how to get a hold of those people. I don't know how, there's no building bulletin board or anything. So there's not really much I can do. I feel like I just have to deal with my own shit right now. And now I'm just like, well, I'm almost in as bad of a place as them. And people I barely know have stepped up and offered assistance. And that overwhelms me and makes me very grateful, and also very like I don't know. It comes down to like, my boyfriend's like, well, like, you do things for people.
It's one of those times where it's like you get to see karma working, the right way. Even if you, whether or not you even believe of such a thing, I just think that if you're the kind of person that's going around putting good, I know that this sounds very woo-woo, like the good vibes, but if you're doing good things for people, if you're helping, if you're kind, I do think there's something to be said that, like, with something like what's happening now, that people want to help that person. If you're walking around being an asshole to everybody, people will be like, I'm glad your shit burned down. But no, it's not that. It's like, if you're going out and you're being kind, you're helping people, you're generally just being positive, and you're that kind of person that, even if it's just leaving a kind comment on someone's social media or something like that, you want to help that person in whatever little way. I mean, it's just, I think it's a pretty basic thing. I mean, it's just, again, like, and it's not like you're someone who goes around like asking for help a lot of times, or like, it's, those people that seem like they're just kind of always looking for something, or always kind of wanting just like somebody, hey, come do this for me, come do, like, but it's like, it's that thing of like, people want to help those who are helping themselves, or like, or just trying to be helpful.
I mean, I agree with that. I also just, it's a weird place to be in, because you're just like, well, why do I feel weird about this? Because I think we're just not taught to ask for help, or to, I was taught as a good Midwesterner to be self-sufficient.
Right. I don't know if it's like an American thing, because I know it's like, well, the South and the Midwest definitely kind of have that whole like pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, and just like, you just whatever it is, figure it out, work through it. But there's sometimes you just need help, and it's I think it's also, I mean, not without getting on like a political rant, I just feel like there's also, when you live in a country where that they almost treat poverty like it's some sort of moral failing,
right?
That's also in the back of your mind too, that when you need, and it's again through something that's no fault of your own, you almost feel bad, like, oh man, what? It's like, I kind of need this thing, but I don't really want to ask for it, because I don't want to look like, someone who's like begging for a handout. Because I mean, that's one of the things, like, again, like, we having done a Kickstarter, I think the biggest thing a lot of people have doing that is because, like, you feel like you're going to people like with your hands out, and I guess maybe it's just something in our culture in this country, and I'm sure other places too. There's like a kind of innate sense of guilt with that's there for whatever reason. But yeah, it's a thing.
So I might have to try to find it. There's a great quote. I found it. Amanda Palmer's book, The Art of Asking, which is a great book. Like, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about her. The book is incredible. And the quote is, asking for help with shame says, you have the power over me. Asking with condescension says, I have the power over you. But asking for help with gratitude says, we have the power to help each other. And, I think that's, I don't know, I had to tell, um, you know, it's weird when you have clients and things like that, and you have to just be like, how much do I tell them? And what do I, the past 2 months, so much has been piled on that every single thing, I feel like my story gets more ridiculous. And I'm working with a company that builds free websites for people because I'm starting a coaching business. And the company keeps coming to me with like, hey, we need this from you. And I'm like, great. Well, my cousin just died and I have to go home and go to her funeral. So I will get back to you. Oh, my boyfriend just got in this car accident and his cat's dying right now. So I'll get back to you. And like, no, I'm like, I just had to email them today and be like, so this might sound ridiculous and you might think I'm lying, but my building burned down and I will get back to you.
You start thinking about the person that's always trying to use like the dead relative excuse, or it's like, was it Ferris Bueller's Day Off? It's like, man, if I take another day off of school, I'm gonna have to cough up a lung.
Yeah. That is how I feel right now, is I'm just like, my story has become ridiculous. And I wouldn't believe it if I was someone else. But I'm like, well, I can prove it all.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing where it's just, what they said, was it real life stranger than fiction? It just it's something like that. When it rains, it pours. I mean, it's, I don't know what it is, man, but there's some weird thing to that where it's like, I know people, when they start going through it, it's never just one thing.
No,
I mean, like after my mom passed away, so back in 2011, I went through a breakup was like one of the first big relationships I'd had after I'd gotten divorced. And 2 weeks later, my mother died. And I think later that year, within a year later, I got into a car wreck, permanently messed up my neck. I had planned to buy a motorcycle. I had picked it out. I had figured I was going to, like, I had my plan. I'm going to get my dad to drive me up there. I'm going to buy this thing because I had, gotten money from my mom's insurance, and I was going to drive it home. And 2 weeks before, T-boned, bam, neck's all screwed up. Now my hands don't quite work the way I want them to. And then I didn't even have the heart to go call the salesman back and tell him I couldn't do it. Cause he's still calling me because he's excited. He's thinking he's about to make this sale. I just I couldn't even pick up the phone. So I was just like, yeah, I had to buy a new car. My car got totaled. And,
that's insane.
I even and even before that, because, I think like 2 months after, it was within, I had gotten my license to ride a motorcycle within like 2 weeks after my mom passed away. I'd already got booked a class. So I'm in there just trying to hold my shit together while trying to learn to ride a motorcycle. And then, like, I think 2 months later on a test ride, I crashed, laid it down. And then, so then having to make, I think the most painful part was having to pay for a bike that I didn't own. So, and having to pay for those repairs. Thankfully, the people at the store were really, really cool about it. And they got the price. Like, we're basically just doing it for cost. They're not even charging you for labor at that point. But like, and I think just because at that point, they're so terrified that you're going to sue them because you crashed on a test ride day. But still, like, yeah, it was like in that time, man, it's just like all this stuff started happening, and it just, and I don't know what that phenomenon is, but it's like you're going through it right now. And it's like, I wish I knew what to tell you, or anybody that's going through that, but I don't.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it's just kind of like, all I can say is it's just going to suck until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, and it's kind of like, and it's, I hate the cliche, like the only way out is through, but it's just, and I mean, you've already got the mindset, just work the problem. Cause I mean, especially after this last few years, we've all been going through stuff just collectively. And it's, I mean, you seem to be pretty proactive anyway, but just getting that, having that mind, getting into the problem solving mindset versus the feeling sorry for you mindset, or feeling sorry for yourself mindset.
I think that's true, but I also think like, you know, my roommate is in the problem solving mindset, but right now, I think sometimes you just have to accept when there absolutely isn't anything you can take action on yet, because we can't get into the building until Monday at the earliest, and our technical move out day is Thanksgiving. So it's like sometimes you just have to go, what problems are actual problems I can solve? You know, because some problems are not problems you can solve, in which case they're not really problems in the real term,
Yeah.
right? They're just what is. So it's like you have to figure out what you can actually do anything about, do something about those things, but sometimes those things take time too. And then let everything else go. And that's the hardest part with stuff like this, is just knowing when to take action and when to just go, there's nothing I can do. I release this. I let go.
Well, it's like the whole serenity prayer thing, right? It's like, Lord, give me the strength to change the things I can, to, let go of the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And
Right.
that's all far easier said than done. But I mean, I guess that's kind of the point of the thing. It's just, again, easier said, because like it's because in this situation, especially if you've got any shred of control freak in you, you just want to go into action and just work everything out. But then sometimes there's just things that there's nothing to be worked out. And it's just you, and that is, I think that's the harder part, because especially if you're someone that's used to solving problems, your brain is looking for a reason to fix it. And sometimes there is no fix.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I have to go do a voiceover session. So, sending good wishes to everybody for happy Thanksgiving. And hopefully we will see you back here at Scratch Cloud Push for another interview with someone in happier times.
Yes. So, well, if you're out there and you've been watching or listening, thank you very much. Like, subscribe, tell a friend or two or three or 20. But yeah, thanks everybody. And thank you, Billie, for being the pro that you are. You've been consistently getting it done. And, since we are coming on Thanksgiving, I am thankful for you. It's like anytime I start to get remotely concerned that, because of all the shit you've been going through, that like something's going to slow you down. You every time you've stepped up. So, if you're worried that you're not setting a good example, you definitely are. So again, thank you. And to everyone out there, thanks for watching, listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
That will be all for this episode. To keep up with the show, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Scratch Claw Push. If social media isn't your thing, you can contact us at scratchclawpush@gmail.com. This podcast has been a Carcutta Media production. For a full list of our podcasts, go to carcuttamedia.com/podcasts. This recording, or any portion thereof, may not be reproduced or used in any manner whatsoever without the express written permission of the publisher, except for use of brief quotations and review. Copyright 2023 by Carcutta Media, LLC. All rights reserved.